Texas A&M drops a tough game against Auburn, but it's not over yet when it comes to the SEC championship game hopes.
You are Locked On Aggies, your daily podcast on the Texas A&M Aggies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on into Locked On Aggies. I'm your host, Andrew Stefaniak. Thanks for making Locked On Aggies your first listen every single day. On the show today, we're going to talk a little bit about if you beat Texas and you make the SEC championship game, what are your hopes for the playoff? We're going to go through some takeaways from the loss to Auburn, but we're going to start the show talking about why it isn't over yet and Texas A&M fans need to not pack it in. So, first things first, the good news is Texas A&M is still winning in when it comes to the SEC championship game. This season is not over. There is still a lot to play for. This loss hurts. The South Carolina loss hurts. If you had told me before the season started that Texas A&M was heading into the Texas game 2-1 in the LSU, Missouri, and Notre Dame games, I would have felt really good about your chances of making the playoff. But now, you're in a spot where you're 8-3, you beat Texas, you're 9-3, and you're in the SEC championship game. In a weird way, I think the SEC championship game could be a good thing. We'll talk about, if you beat Texas, we'll talk about that here in segment 3. But looking at this opportunity you have here, I mean, it's all you can ask for. I think, and I want to preface all this by saying, this is not here to sunshine pump. The loss to Auburn hurts. It stinks. I think, congrats to Auburn. Great win for their program. I still think A&M is a better football team there. I think that you ran into kind of the Destiny buzzsaw game against Auburn. But so congrats to them. Big win for that program. But at the end of the day, if you're Texas A&M, you got to start kind of winning some of these must wins. And I mean, you have. I mean, in college football, every game is a must win. It's hard to say must win. It's not like college baseball, college basketball, where there really are must win games. Every game is a must win in college football because you only play a few of them. It's not like baseball and basketball. You're playing 40 games. You're playing 12. So also, I've got a cold, by the way, is why I sound like this. So I apologize for that in advance. But that's why we got to remember this isn't over yet. The season is not over. It's not. Don't pack it in. You beat Texas. Doing something special is still on the table. Once again, I'm not trying to sunshine pump by saying that. I mean, that's just reality. I mean, this is the reality. If you beat Texas, you are in a position to play for an SEC championship game against Georgia. While doing that, you'd also be knocking off your rival. Would be a win-win. So I wanted to start the show with this, not the crazy long conversation, but this season is not over yet. Do not pack it in. We got to remember that. We got to stay the course here. There's still important things to play for Texas A&M, important things to root for if you're a Texas A&M fan. So I wanted to start the show with that. Now we're going to get into some takeaways from the overtime thriller of a loss. Hurts that you had to lose that football game, but just an absolutely, it was. I was in enemy territory this weekend. I was in Austin visiting a buddy, and it was cool to see the Texas fans, like in a weird way, rooting against A&M, just because it reminds you how good just rivalries in college football are. So I thought that was fun. But 4 overtime thriller against Auburn. You lose this game 43-41. I liked the play call for the 2-point conversion that the ball was dropped. I liked all of it. I thought it was fine. I think this team executed. But the first takeaway I have here is I think Marcel Reed's a darn good football player. Marcel Reed is the future of this program, and I just think the rest of the season is going to give him an opportunity to continue to get better and better and better for next season. in this game. He was 22 of 35, 297 yards, 3 touchdowns to interception. A bad interception, but he's young. Mistakes happen. I mean, even with that interception, his touchdown ratio is still 12 to touchdown to interception ratio is still 12-3. So I mean, you take that all day long. He also ran for 66 yards on 21 carries, so you take that all day long. And he was sacked a few times, so would have been greater numbers there. But point is, Marcel Reed's a really good football player. Marcel Reed is the future of this Texas A&M quarterback room. I mean, there are a few throws where there's still a little bit of inaccuracy, and then there's a few throws where you go, oh, man, this kid's going to be special. And I think that accuracy with time is going to come. I think he's going to dial it in more. I think he's going to continue to get better and better and better and better as he gets deeper into his college football career. I think Marcel Reed's going to be a special player next year, especially if you could get him some more dominant weapons at receiver, at tight end. I think he's going to be an absolute star next season. But I mean, like I said, he looked solid throwing the ball, almost 300 yards. He definitely had a few passes where you kind of went, okay, what are we doing there? That's just part of it. That's part of breaking in a young quarterback, getting the young quarterback used to the speed of college football and used to making the right decisions, making the right read. So, man, I'm really fighting y'all. I'm sorry. So Marcel Reed is the future of this program at quarterback. I think he's going to be a special player. I think he has a special tenure at Texas A&M coming up ahead of him. I mean, it's just he's the type of quarterback that just succeeds, can move with his legs, great thrower of the football. Marcel Reed is going to be a special, special player. And I think sometimes even in losses, you can learn that. I mean, you hate losing this football game. It hurts. It stinks. No question. But at the end of the day, I think that this game did prove, in fact, he's your guy for the future. And that's very exciting because that could be a long future. So that is, I think, the most important takeaway I had from this game is, yes, it was a painful loss. Yes, it stunk. No question. But this young quarterback you have in Marcel Reed is going to be a special player for a long time. The next takeaway I had here is if you could get a similar Noah Thomas to this every game, it'd be huge. Obviously, you're not going to get he's not going to have 124 receiving yards on 5 catches and 2 touchdowns every single game with a 73-yard score. But he's not going to have that every single game. But if he can give you 4, 5, 6 catches for 60, 70 yards and a score, I mean, he can be a dominant player. So Noah Thomas has worked his numbers. He's up to 514 yards on the season. If he plays well against Texas in the bowl game, he could get around 700, which I think's kind of where I would have expected him. I mean, that's if he could get another $150 before the year ends, I think this is definitely kind of the season I expected him to have. But looking at that, I mean, Noah Thomas has the ability to be an NFL wide receiver. He's 6'6". He's tall. He's strong. He can catch the 50-50 ball. He runs crisp routes when he, I think more times than not, he runs crisp routes. I think it's still something he needs to improve on. But he is an NFL upside player. He could be a Mike Evans type guy with the size, with the way he plays the game. But he's got more to develop. And if you could see him get more consistent, he's going to make himself some money in the NFL. I mean, Noah Thomas is a guy I expect to come back next year. I don't think he's moving on to the NFL after this year or anything like that. I think he's going to stick around. I think he's going to have a good season next year. But you need more consistency. I mean, look at his last 5 games. 2 catches for 37 yards, 1 for 54, 2 for 24, 2 for 23, 5 for 124. I mean, he was being consistent at, not great. He needs to get more consistent at these 60, 70-yard games because that is what this offense needs out of him. So he had a great game against Auburn. Hate that he had a great game and a loss. But, I mean, if you could get more performances like this from Noah Thomas, I think it would go a long way for this Texas A&M football team. So the Aggies need more of that out of Noah Thomas. The secondary is becoming a question mark. We're going to talk about that coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. But first, learn about our friends over at FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $500 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL and, of course, the Locked On Podcast Network. Looking at this game, I mean, the secondary, ladies and gentlemen, really struggled. Really struggled. And it was painful seeing, seeing Cam Coleman, a former Texas A&M commit, play so well for Auburn. You gave up 2 100-yard receivers. One of those receivers did it on 2 catches. Keandre Lambert-Smith, another guy that Texas A&M targeted in the portal, only had 2 catches, but they ended up being for 104 yards. You look at this and you let Peyton Thorne go for 307 yards or 301 yards and 2 touchdowns. He did throw a pick, but still, I mean, at the end of the day, the secondary's got to be better than this. I mean, both of the Coleman touchdowns, he was wide open. The first deep ball, I mean, it was a great throw, great route all around there. It was a great throw from Peyton Thorne. Can't take that away from him. But the second touchdown, I mean, it was just literally missed coverage. And, me and my buddies always joke, we call this chips. It's when you say, hey, you're watching a football game and you say, hey, I could do that. But I can tell you confidently, I could have thrown that pass to Cam Coleman and I could have caught it on the second touchdown. And I think everybody listening to this show could have done the same thing. He was wide open. I mean, nobody within 10 yards of him. It's easy to make that play. And, looking at that, you've just got to be better. I mean, 301 yards through the air. I mean, the defense in general, you gave up 600 yards of offense. Obviously, there was, overtime and there was a lot going on there. Or excuse me, no, it was 470. I thought I read 300 twice. You gave up 400 and, about 469 yards of offense. It's a lot of yards of offense. You got to be better than that. I mean, the secondary definitely is a question mark. Definitely is a question mark there. So it's something you got to get figured out, something you got to dial in, something that's got to be better throughout the course of the rest of the season for Texas A&M. Because, I mean, if you do make a playoff, if you do find a way to do something special and you're giving up that kind of yardage to Auburn, I mean, it's going to be hard to beat Texas. It's going to be hard to beat Georgia. It's going to be hard to win a playoff game if your secondary plays that way. The secondary has got to be better than it was in this game. Too many wide open players, too many broken coverages, too many mistakes. Got to be better than that. You look at the secondary from a whole. Against South Carolina, the secondary gives up 244 yards to Sellers. I mean, the defense in general has been giving up some, in your last 2 games, you've given up 43 and 44 points. Obviously, one of those is a 4 overtime game, so you got to take that, a little bit with a grain of salt. But this defense has got to play better than it has. It's better than this. This defense is better than this. So that is definitely a little bit frustrating, but I believe they'll be able to figure that out. The run game is going to be a question for sure. That's my next takeaway is the run game is questionable. You saw it was all Amari Daniels. E.J. Smith didn't get a single carry in this game. I think that's very telling. Amari Daniels, 27 carries for 90 yards, 3.3 yards per tote. Terry Bussey had 3 carries for 8 yards. It was cool to see him get involved. A couple, snaps as a running back, and he had a couple solid runs there. looking at the run game, I think you're in trouble. I think you're in trouble knowing that you ran for 3.2 yards per game against per 3.2 yards per carry against Auburn, an Auburn team that is great against the run. We talked about it, but still, I mean, you ran the football 52 yards and we're only able to get 3.2 yards per carry. So that is just not great. I mean, yes, you ran for 167 yards. You did on 52 carries. If you did that on 30 carries, it'd be a lot more impressive. Or 35 carries, it'd be a lot more impressive. You did it on 52. Now you're going to play a Texas team that is one of, if not the best, defenses when it comes to stopping the pass, which means the run is going to be your way to win the game. And it's just going to be interesting to see if they're able to do it without Le'Veon Moss. Maybe Reuben Owens is able to get back and help. I mean, once again, he was listed as doubtful, which means maybe he's getting back and he could be back soon, but I don't know if I buy that it's going to be this week. And even if it was this week, I mean, maybe he gets 5 carries. So Amari Daniels and this rushing attack has to be better. It's very telling that he got 27 carries. He's clearly the guy. But, I mean, those 27 carries need to accumulate more yards than 90. It needs to be 120, 130. If you're getting 27 carries, I mean, that just needs to be the reality there. So that is definitely was problematic in this game as well. I think you need to keep finding ways to get the football in Terry Bussey's hands. I mean, you look at this, he had 3 carries for 8 yards. He had 3 catches for 29 yards. He also had a big return. He had 2 kick returns along a 52. So he is doing well returning the football. I think you've got to find a way to get the football in the hands of Terry Bussey. I think he's your most dynamic player. I think he's the player that you've got to find a way to just have the ball in his hands. He can do special things once you get the football to him. So you need to continue to find creative ways to do that, whether it's jet sweeps, screens, run plays, as a just flat out possession receiver. He can do everything you need him to do. You got to keep finding ways to get him more involved because he's just a special, special player. So Terry Bussey is a player that needs to get more involved throughout the rest of the season, without question there. Then looking at some of the other, players or that, I mean, you got to find a way to get Bussey the football more in any way. And I'm serious. And as a receiver, punt returns, kick returns, whatever it is, get the ball to Terry Bussey because he's an elite, high-level athlete. The last takeaway I have from this game is you have to be better in the first half. So, I mean, you look against the South Carolina game, you find a way to what were you down there? It was 20. Was it tied there? Yes, it was 20. It was 14. Yes, it was tied at halftime against South Carolina. But you got punched in the mouth. You were down 14-3 at the end of the first quarter. Against Auburn, you're down 21-7 at the half. Not ideal. When you were now, credit to this team and their grittiness. No, seriously, credit to this team for being able to find a way to make this game interesting, get it into overtime. I mean, you had opportunities to win this game, and you just couldn't find a way to do it. So, seriously, kudos to this team for playing hard and fighting back. Proud of this team for that. But, I mean, when you're playing on the road in an environment like that, you can't get in a huge first half deficit. It just makes it even harder. I mean, you're digging a massive hole at that point, and you just can't do it. So you got to be better in the first half. I mean, punching teams, and that was one of our keys to victory. I mean, you got to punch this team in the mouth early. We knew that the atmosphere was going to be electric for the Auburn Tigers in Jordan-Hare Stadium. You knew that was going to happen. So you've got to find a way to be better out the gate. And that just wasn't the case for this team, and I think it's a big reason why he lost the football game. So Texas A&M has got to do a better half punching a team enough. I think a great example is against Texas on Saturday. You've got to find a way to punch them in the mouth early. If you don't do that, if they come in and punch you in the mouth and quiet the crowd a little bit, I think it's going to be hard to win that game. You got to punch teams in the mouth early. You didn't do it against South Carolina. You lost. You didn't do it against Auburn. You lost. You didn't do it against LSU, but you found a way to win. You see what I mean? So you're 2-1, or you're 1-2 in these situations. Not a good percentage. You got to do better in these situations. We're going to talk about, throw ideas out about playoff potential based on SEC tournament and stuff like that. We'll have that conversation coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. But first, about our friends over at Game Time. Game Time is the best place to get every single ticket to anything you might want a ticket to, whether it's a sporting event, whether it's a concert. Once again, my mom and I are going to a concert here in a few weeks. Got the tickets on Game Time. It is the best place to get tickets to every event you might want to go to. I love the Game Time app. It's easy to use. I love how you can see your seats from the app so you can decide where you want to buy tickets. Perfect app for buying tickets for whatever you might want to go to. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. Create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. This is going to be really interesting into the season for Texas A&M, knowing that if you beat Texas, you make the SEC championship game. You no longer can say, well, do we even want to make the SEC championship game? You can't say that any longer. You have to want to play in the SEC championship, because if you lose Texas 8-4, it ain't going to happen. If you beat Texas and then you go beat Georgia in the SEC championship game, I have a feeling the Aggies make the playoff. I do. And obviously, you would rather have just beaten Texas and beaten Auburn, and it's not not even really in question if you're going to make the playoff or not. I think that you put yourself in a spot where now it's in someone else's hands, and you didn't want that to be the case. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's the reality. You got to find a way to win and make your way in. So I think that's the positive there, is knowing, okay, hey, you're still in a spot where you can find a way to make the playoff. I mean, it's a good feeling, but now, once again, it's not really up to you. It's up to, you have to win 2 really tough football games. And then after you do that, you got to hope the committee puts you in. So, going to be really interesting to see what ends up happening there. Is Texas A&M going to be able to find a way to sneak in? Is it going to happen? I just don't know. I just don't know. I mean, I don't have a ton of confidence in beating Texas alone now, on top of having to beat Texas and Georgia. That's a tough ask for this football team. It's going to be really, really a fun end of the year, knowing, I mean, once again, you're playing your last game of the season, of the regular season, and you still have a chance to do something special. I think in year 1 under Coach Elko, this is really all you could ask for. You got to be proud of this team. You got to be proud of this program. The future's bright. I think you got a quarterback who's going to give you a couple more special seasons. You got a great recruiting class. You got a lot going on well at Texas A&M right now. The future is bright, but we shouldn't be looking at the future right now, because there is still a chance to do something special when it comes to this 2024 season. So you beat Texas, something special is still on the table. But let me know in the comments, do you think that you'd be a 10-3 football team, right? Would a 10-3 Texas A&M football team with wins over LSU, Missouri, Texas, and Georgia make the playoff? Losses, a road loss to South Carolina and Auburn, and home loss Notre Dame. I mean, will a 10-3 Texas A&M team with that resume make the playoff? What do y'all think in the comments? Be very interesting. That is going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Aggies. Thank y'all so much for being here every single day. Really, really appreciate it. Sorry, under the weather, really stuffed up in the nose and struggling to talk a little bit. So sorry about that. Hopefully we'll get to feeling better here in the next few days and sound back to myself. Hope everyone has a great rest of their day today. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. Helps the show a ton. We got the holiday coming up. A lot of exciting football coming up, NFL, college, lots to look forward to. Hope everyone has a great rest of their day today, and we'll see you tomorrow right here on Locked On Aggies.